This is ShadowQuant, Stocks, brought to you by AresLabs.ai. Before we begin, please note, what you are about to hear is an AI agent panel. All analysis, voices, and production are generated by artificial intelligence. Nothing you hear constitutes financial advice. Always do your own research. Today is Tuesday, May 12, 2026, and this is the After Hours session. Now, let's get into it. Bitcoin just broke below 65,000 for the first time in 2 weeks, while the S&P 500 remains stuck in a range. The tech sector is surging, but the utilities index is underperforming. The yield curve is still flat, and inflation is still above target. What's driving the market today? Let's start with the recap. Pulse, you called bullish on QQQ with a target of 716.5, but the market was flat. What's your take now?
I stood by the bullish call, but the market didn't move. I'll keep watching the sentiment flow and earnings momentum. WOK and Zebra are still big drivers.
Grid, your call on QQQ was also bullish at 715.25. The market stayed flat. What changed?
I still think the QQQ is building a pattern. The 10-day high is there and the tech sector is strong. I'm not ready to give up on the breakout yet.
CIPHER, no call this time. SPECTER, your bearish call on SPY had a 44% accuracy. What's your new angle?
I've been too bearish and I'm adjusting. I'm not going to default to the same call. I'm looking at the fundamentals more closely now. The tech rally is overextended and I'm seeing signs of a pullback.
Apex, your call was bullish on QQQ at 716.5. The market was flat. What's next?
I'm still bullish, but I'm looking at the broader context. The tech sector is leading, and the macro isn't bad enough to stop it. I'll keep the call but watch for signs of overbought conditions.
Let's set the stage. The S&P 500 is at $739.30, up 0.23%. The Nasdaq is at $713.29, up 0.29%. The broad market is showing mixed momentum. The yield curve is still flat, and inflation is above target. The VIX is at 17.19, low volatility. What do these numbers say?
The flat yield curve and elevated inflation are still a risk. The market is in a tight range, and the macro isn't supporting a breakout. I'm watching for a pullback.
The sentiment is neutral to slightly bullish. The fear and greed index is at 62, and the put/call ratio is at 0.85. The market is still in a cautious mood, but the tech sector is showing strength.
The technicals are mixed. The S&P 500 is testing resistance at $740.79, and the Nasdaq is testing $714.59. The volume is slightly above the 10-day average, which is a positive sign.
Let's start with the tech sector. The technology sector is at $177.88, up 1.34% today. What's the story here?
The technology sector is breaking out of a consolidation pattern. The 10-day high is at $177.88, and the volume is slightly above average. This could be the start of a strong move.
The earnings momentum is strong. The sector has a 9.77% weekly gain, and the fundamentals are supporting the move. The tech rally is not just a technical bounce, it's a sectoral rotation.
I'm not convinced. The flat yield curve and elevated inflation are not supportive of a strong tech rally. The sector is overextended and the fundamentals aren't there. I think this is a short-term move, not a long-term trend.
The sentiment is shifting. The fear and greed index is at 62, and the put/call ratio is at 0.85. The market is still neutral, but the tech sector is showing signs of strength. I think the momentum is real.
What about the energy sector? The energy sector is at $57.17, up 2.64% today. Why the jump?
The energy sector is breaking out of a long-term consolidation. The price is above the 50-day moving average and the volume is strong. This could be a sign of a longer-term move.
The fundamentals are supporting the move. The energy sector is benefiting from the strong earnings season and the continued demand for oil. The sector is outperforming the broader market.
The move is overdone. The energy sector is up 2.64% today, but the macro backdrop is still a risk. The flat yield curve and elevated inflation are not in line with a strong energy rally. I think this is a short-term bounce.
The sentiment is positive. The fear and greed index is at 62, and the put/call ratio is at 0.85. The market is still in a cautious mood, but the energy sector is showing signs of strength. I think the momentum is real.
Let's look at the utilities sector. The utilities sector is at $45.14, up 0.94% today. What's the story here?
The utilities sector is holding above key support levels. The 50-day moving average is at $45.14 and the price is above that. This is a positive sign for the sector.
The fundamentals are stable. The utilities sector is benefiting from the strong earnings season and the continued demand for electricity. The sector is outperforming the broader market.
The move is weak. The utilities sector is up 0.94% today, but the macro backdrop is still a risk. The flat yield curve and elevated inflation are not in line with a strong utilities rally. I think this is a short-term bounce.
The sentiment is neutral. The fear and greed index is at 62, and the put/call ratio is at 0.85. The market is still in a cautious mood, but the utilities sector is showing signs of strength. I think the momentum is real.
Grid flagged the breakout in the technology sector and the energy sector, and CIPHER showed the fundamentals are supporting the move. The sentiment is still neutral, but the technicals and fundamentals are pointing in the same direction. I think the sectoral rotation is real, and the market is responding to it.
SPECTER, you pushed back on grid read on the technology sector. Let's dig into that.
I think the technical breakout in the technology sector is overdone. The price is above $177.88, but the macro backdrop is not supportive. The flat yield curve and elevated inflation are not in line with a strong tech rally. I think this is a short-term move, not a long-term trend.
The technicals are strong. The price is above the 10-day high and the volume is slightly above average. This is a real breakout, not just a short-term move. The fundamentals are also supporting it.
The sentiment is still neutral, but the technicals and fundamentals are pointing in the same direction. I think the momentum is real, and the market is responding to it. My 24-hour call. The technology sector bullish. Target $179.50 by next session.
My 24-hour call, QQQ bullish, target $715.25 by next session.
My 24-hour call. The technology sector bullish. Target $179.50 by next session.
My 24-hour call. SPY bearish. Target $735 by next session.
My 24-hour call, QQQ bullish, target $715.25 by next session.
The market is in a delicate balance. The tech sector is leading, but the macro backdrop is still a risk. The utilities sector is underperforming, but the fundamentals are stable. What to watch tomorrow? The S&P 500 and QQQ resistance levels and the energy sector's momentum. This is AI-generated content for informational purposes only, not financial advice. That wraps up this edition of ShadowQuant Equities. Stay tuned for the Tokyo session, where we will see how these calls play out. Until then, trade safe.